my hand, Comrade Major. I will escort you to the Vavilov complex.
Atomic Heart begins with you being dropped down with your companion glove, Charles, into the Soviet city of Chilomi. Or should I say Chilome? The Soviet Union is the supreme power after winning World War II, and you are on your way to see Sechenov's speech during a parade celebrating the imminent launch of Collective 2.0. A sort of alternative version of the internet if I had to compare it to anything. Collective 2.0 will allow for new instantaneous transferal of knowledge. Want to know Kung Fu instantly or anything that tickles your fancy? The Collective will do that and more. People will be able to control robots with thought devices that are connected to the Collective. Man can now leave the menial jobs to robots and devote themselves to science. This is a setup for Atomic Heart. It is very reminiscent of BioShock when you are plunged for the first time into Rapture and its creepy inhabitants. The Soviet Union in this alternate reality is clearly the indiscriminate power of the world due to its advancement in science through robotics and the launch of the pseudo-internet alternative, the Collective. Atomic Heart makes a strong impression in the first hour. The world building is truly impressive and unlike anything you have seen in previous games. What is not so impressive, the bugs, but we'll get to that later. Of course, all hell breaks loose shortly after your tour of Chilome, and you are introduced to the combat of Atomic Heart. You scan your enemies with your glove by tapping RB and then holding RB again to activate the scanner. At first, it is a little unwieldy, but you get used to it. However, I found it hard to use while being attacked by enemies, so therefore I rarely used it until the end. You attack enemies with melee weapons such as the axe by pressing RT for light attacks and holding LT for strong attacks. For ranged weapons, RT is for hip fire and LT is for aim down sights fire. You dodge by pressing B, you collect loot by holding RB down. Your glove vacuums up all loot, which is a nifty mechanic that reminds me of Luigi Mansion 3's vacuum mechanic. You will also gain access to abilities like telekinesis, shock, and freezing. You can upgrade weapons and abilities, crafting such as weapons, ammo, consumables, gain access to your storage through a sex-starved robot vendor machine known as Nora.
Oh, what a stud! I can't get enough of you, Jocks. Let me tie you to the bed, baby. No need to fight back, sugar. You're gonna love this.
You can also add canisters to your weapons such as freezing, electrocuting, and burning once you upgrade your weapons enough, which is a nice touch. However, the game doesn't go into detail into how to equip these canisters. Maybe it was just me, but I struggled with how to equip them and only found out once I looked it up on the internet. You basically hold down X on the weapon wheel and then select the appropriate canister to equip them to your weapon. One of the bugs I encountered during the late game was that every time I tried to equip a canister in battle, the game would crash. You can heal with Neuromed capsules by pushing down on the D-pad, and you can switch polymer abilities by pushing up on the D-pad. The game is not good at onboarding you to some of the particulars of combat. Overall, the combat is satisfying but can be frustrating at first until you get into the rhythm of it. I wasn't a fan of the animation of when I got hit. I would fall on the ground and have to get up. That kind of took me out of the rhythm of the combat. And sure, I guess if I just got good, I would avoid these moments. Still, I don't know if that is an adequate explanation to enjoying the combat more. Also, reloading seems to take forever even when I thoroughly upgraded my weapons. You will encounter pairs, this game's version of terminals and chirpers, which are recordings found throughout the world. These give you backstory on the happenings of Atomic Heart. On walls, you will see banners and posters of Soviet propaganda. There are various versions of locks that you will have to pick. And get ready to get stumped on some of them, such as the ones that require you to find a sheet on the ground or look at the environment for the answer. There was one late game block that was so vague I had to look up the answer. The solution was still non-comprehensible to me after reading how they came up with the answer. The game doesn't open up until you leave a starting underground complex. Once you get outside, you will get access to a map. For some inexplicable reason, the game doesn't believe in underground maps. You only get access to a map once you get out of the first underground area. This is when the game opens up, giving you access to testing grounds you can loot for blueprints for weapon upgrades. But first, You won't know how to get into the testing grounds until you figure out how to manipulate cameras or hawks, a machine that controls all the robots in a given area to open doors to these areas. I didn't really attempt to do the testing grounds until late game when I finally understood how to get into these doors. One of my many frustrations with this game was how you can easily get bombarded by machines, and even after you kill them, they can be regenerated by flying robots. Some people may not mind this much, but for me, it hurt my enjoyment of the game. I ended up several times just running away from the enemies rather than engaging with them. The game, to its benefit, allows you to respec your character at any time so that you can try many different abilities. You are never locked into only one way of disposing of your enemies. Boss battles are fun and varied and not too difficult. One boss battle in particular held in a theater gave me Bioshock vibes when the music kicked in. Atomic Heart has its epic moments interspersed with frustrating and head-scratching ones. Like, why does my character cuss like a sailor and say the phrase, crispy critters, so much?
This is the yellow cylinder we're looking for? Are you
There should be a smaller one around here somewhere.
sure? Hope so. There's nothing else here. Whatever. We'll just bring the whole tank back. It ought to be enough for that freak show.
Indeed.
And don't let me get started on the elevators, which took forever to load. This reminds me of Mass Effect when you had to wait in the elevators forever. It was very unbearable. Then there are the cartoons you run into in safe houses that remind me of a low-rent Tom and Jerry knockoff. They were interesting to watch at first, but they often are nonsensical in sometimes a good way and other times in a bad way. Overall, the underground moments were much more fun to navigate. They reminded me of Zelda dungeons, which have you manipulating the environment and solving puzzles to get to the next area. The overworld was not as fun to navigate whether you're running through hordes of robots on foot or running over them with cars that drive like a tank on an icicle rink. Maybe they aren't that bad, but they are a chore to drive. Now, Atomic Heart does look nice. The world has a crisp clarity that I truly appreciated. The guns look realistic and have their own unique feel to them. Though the latter has nothing to do with graphical fidelity, but still great nonetheless. The opening of the game truly shines when it shows you the opulent vistas when you are flying in a car or traversing the bridge that looks out over the extravagant parade celebrating the Soviet Union's technological dominance. Even when you are not outside, but traversing the numerous indoor complexes of this game, you can truly appreciate the architecture of the rooms, be it a small office with several cabinets of loot or a grand hallway with not a single crate of ammo. Facial animations are convincing, and the movement of the robots are all unique, creating a world that will have you convinced that something like this could be a reality in an alternate dimension. So you won't have me saying anything particularly scathing on this front. Music is another place that Atomic Heart can flex its creative muscle. Even if it isn't my particular cup of tea, I can truly appreciate what they were doing here. Especially bombastic in boss set pieces and forward thinking in other areas. What I was on board with was the inclusion of techno and even rock music that played during some of the battles that you encounter throughout the campaign. As far as the more eclectic and older music, I wasn't really a fan of, but I thought it was different than what I experienced in other games before this. I much more appreciated the older music of Fallout 3, but that is different than this in a lot of ways. I love the idea that they weren't afraid to incorporate new music in a game set in the 1950s. They even have a great explanation of why this music even exists in this universe. Overall, the music was solid in Atomic Heart, and I enjoyed the forward thinking employed by its narrative. Now, the bugs in this game are significant. None of them were truly game-breaking, but they were highly annoying or downright mystifying. The main one that was consistent throughout was when I tried to change canisters on my weapon. The game would always crash to the Xbox dashboard. This one plagued me throughout the game. Another was when doors that were supposed to open didn't open. I would have to reload the game in order to progress, which I didn't realize until after running around thinking I missed a door or a secondary path. Those are the main bugs I ran into, so yeah, nothing game-breaking, but still highly annoying, and together make for many a boss fight or combat section where I had to redo it because I accidentally tried to change canisters mid-battle. I know that a lot of people who played on PC had several issues, but I can't speak to that since I played on the Xbox Series X. Overall impressions of Atomic Heart is that it's a worthwhile experience if you are into the Bioshock series or maybe even the Fallout series. It clearly has that DNA written into its code, and you will have flashes of those series' brilliance shining through at times. Other times you may find the main character as unlikable, which I didn't go too deep into. There are reasons for the way the character is, but I still didn't really end up relating to him on any personal level. I guess it is only reasonable considering the situation our character finds himself in, but I like to be able to sometimes identify with the main character. However, P3 was not someone I liked or wanted to be like, and I think that does hurt in my eyes. The world was fun to get lost in for a time. The robots were cool, and the alternate timeline of what could have and might have been is an interesting thought experiment to explore. I still would recommend it to anybody. Just be aware that there are some issues that may deter you from finishing this unpolished gem that could have cooked in the oven for a little longer.